Good morning, everybody. Hope you got your coffee and ready to talk some coffee here. Coffee talk. It's not a great intro, is it?
But, coffee talk.
Yeah. It is springtime. It's spring break. Kids are home. They're having a blast, I hope. Parents are, I hope, having a blast. Maybe a little frantic. But anyways.
Our thing is just go outside. Just go outside.
Yeah.
I know it's 8 in the morning. Go outside.
Yeah, right now, though. Why not? It's so beautiful out.
Oh,
man, I love it.
Maybe not when this video comes out.
Yes, it seems like it's kind of,
we'll see.
But anyways, it's just springtime here. But we want to look back and then look forward. We got some great stuff coming up. But before we do that, we'll look back. On Sunday, we talked about the Samaritan woman. Mm-hmm. Jesus was in Judea, and he decided to go to Galilee, and he went through Samaria. And we talked about how he was on assignment from God the Father in order to go through Samaria. And he got to the well a day and a half later, about noon, at Sychar, and a woman came up. And we talked about this woman and how she had probably been shamed, and so she was coming to the well alone rather than communally like the women normally do in the morning or in the evening. And so Jesus asked for a drink, and she's like, "What? I'm a woman. Jews don't talk to women in public. I'm a Samaritan. Jews don't talk to Samaritans." And she wouldn't say this, but she's thinking, I'm trying to be alone here.
Yeah. And
she asked Jesus for a drink, and so Jesus, starts this conversation.
Jesus asked her.
Jesus asked her for a drink. Thank you. And the metaphor is Jesus saying, "You would have asked me for a drink." Yeah, exactly, because I have living water, and he's talking spiritual metaphor. She's not getting it. And he's kind of leading her into something to reveal her deep need, her deep hurt, something that's distressing to her. And right as they get to it, he tells her what her need is. You've been looking for something to fill this need with the relationships you've been in. She diverts the conversation. And I think that is such a relevant point to talk about for us, because I've done it, I've seen it, I've experienced it in many different ways, I hear about it. We tend to want to talk about facts. Do I have the facts straight? Theological debates, those kind of things, instead of heart issues. And Jesus wanted to get to the heart issue. So he gets to the heart issue, and then she's like, "Let's have a theological debate because this is making me uncomfortable." Yeah. Why do we do that?
Yeah.
I'm asking you, the know-all, the sage, to tell us.
Okay, so here's what I can tell you with certainty. I do the same. So fight or flight, I flight. Now I'm not thinking that Jesus was wanting to pick a fight with her.
Right.
Like
no, not at all.
He actually even just started with, can I have a drink? Right? Like started just a basic, not even a conversation, but really just started with connecting with her. And yet he was very purposeful. You used the term like he drilled down, right? Like it wasn't like he was just talking about the weather and talking about other things. He actually went straight kind of to the heart. Why do we do that? I would say because when we know ourselves, when we know our own sense of sin, we have a tendency to just want to hide it. Put some cover, put some plaster over top of it, and we'll hide that behind the wall, and we don't have to deal with it, right? And when we have that nice facade, then you assume everything is good beneath the surface. But she showed many indicators that she didn't have it all together. And even then Jesus says, "I actually know what's behind the curtain." Right? And I think it's just that sense of, I don't want to be embarrassed, right? Because I'm already embarrassed because you're a Jewish man talking to me. You shouldn't even be, right? But she probably had an idea of where he was kind of poking at a little bit. And the fact that I think sometimes we would rather divert the conversation to something else, right? And as you were saying that,
I was thinking, we are so similar, all of us. Because you're right. I mean, that is, I think, the universal human response is to try to hide our sin and shame. And we can kind of say that because at the beginning of the Bible, Genesis 3, when the first man and woman disobeyed God, did something he told them not to, what did they do?
Yeah.
They hid, right? That's our first natural reaction, is to hide from God, hide it. And Jesus, talks about...
and they hid literally and figuratively. Like
with
the fig leaf, right?
Right. They covered themselves, they hid away. And we just want to hide that stuff. So why do we want to hide it? First, I think we know it's wrong, like we've done something that we shouldn't have done, so we're embarrassed, like you said. But I also think there's a huge part of rejection in there, because I find myself at first hiding even from people I love, right? And I know love me. So why would I do that? I'm afraid they'd reject me. If I stop and think about it, no, if they really love me, they won't. But our first reaction is to stop.
Yeah.
And so we fear rejection, we fear embarrassment, we fear exposure. I mean, we don't like being vulnerable.
We also fear the fact that if for some reason this is something I'm in the midst of, and I'm not yet at that point of being convicted or ashamed of it yet, I actually don't want to change, right? Because if you're going to call me to actually, leave this part of my life behind, I'm not ready to do that, and I don't want to do that because I kind of like what's going on right now. I like my life the way it is. Please don't mess with it. And even for Jesus, like what would be maybe his next step? Because sometimes we do have to sit with couples and kind of counsel them, and what if Jesus even went to that point of saying, actually, you need to get away from this person, right? For whatever reason. What if you're not ready to do that? That's a big deal, Jesus. Are you sure? Because right?
Yeah.
And it becomes complicated. But if somebody is really asking me to change or to give up something, I don't want to change because I kind of like being in that situation or being in that thing or having that thing in my hand that that kind of gives me that sense of power or benefit or something like that.
Yeah. So we fear change. We fear tough change. We fear something different. Yeah, that's true. Like, so we fear all these things, and and it's easier just to talk about facts, right? And so we have these theological debates about facts, which is what she kind of tried to bring Jesus into. There's this debate. As Samaritans, we see Mount Gerizim as a place to worship. As Jewish people, you see Jerusalem as a place to worship. What do you think, Jesus? And that, how often do we do that, right?
Yeah.
So I think the challenge to us is, Jesus brought it back. He didn't get into the debate about where. He actually knew the truth. Sometimes we might know the truth, but we can't do the same thing Jesus did, because he knew the answer for sure, right? He's God. So I think the danger is to say, oh, Jesus just said the truth and then moved on. Like, we got to be careful there. If there is a debate, there's a reason for it, and but you have to be really careful how we approach it. But Jesus was careful, and he told the truth, but he switched over to how instead of what. Like he switched over to the heart thing. Like, it's not about place anymore. I'm here. It's about how. And then he brought her back to him. So it's always coming back to him. And that's the point, is how can we get back to what's central to Jesus? And we're going to look at this week, we're going to sneak peek John 15. If you're watching this, you'll know ahead of time. John 15 is all about a new command I give you. Love one another. Love. Like, God is about love. He's not about, he is about facts, but what's most important is deep down, are we loving the person, right? And are we caring for and all that? So he brings it back to him, and so that's really the challenge, I think, is on one side is how do we always point towards Jesus in our own thinking and help others in a loving way, not throwing Jesus at them or hitting them over the head with Jesus, but how do we lovingly, point to Jesus? But I think the bigger challenge that I want to get at is, am I open? Am I ready to be vulnerable?
Yeah.
Brene Brown is somebody who writes a lot about vulnerability,
Yeah.
and not even necessarily from a Christian perspective, but she is realizing the truth about the world that God made is when we're vulnerable, we're actually courageous. Mm-hmm. And so yeah, I guess that's the thing I want us to ponder is, when I find myself diverting from heart work that needs to be done, why? And what do I need there? Do I need to talk about the facts, or do I actually need to drill down? Mm-hmm. So, any ways to wrap that up, or thoughts?
That sense of when we are pressured, It is tough, but actually, like you said, there's that sense of courage that actually can come, because even thinking about why life groups and support groups and all kinds of loving, caring, open relationships can actually bring more healing that we don't always understand. Yeah. We think if I'm going to be vulnerable and all of my junk is going to get laid on the table, life is going to be so much worse, right? And so we fear that and we run from it, but actually, it's the flip side. It's actually, as I deal with some of this stuff, I actually do find freedom. Yep. I'm able to live a little bit more joyfully and openly and care for people around me, because then I can relate to them and they can relate to me in that same kind of way. That doesn't mean that just, throwing all of your stuff everywhere is actually a good idea, but actually being able to say, I'm not held down by it. I'm not chained by my shame. Instead, I can see what God has done in me, and I can deal with it and work through it, right? And that's where talking to people, talking to a professional counselor, talking to a pastor, talking to an extremely good friend who is going to point you to Jesus and to hear all of your mess and to say, you know what? I get it, but at the end of the day, just to know that God loves you and to say, even despite all of your things, that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us, that actually matters. So finding yourself in a support group, whether it's even just person to person or just a larger group, it actually can help you live a better life. Right?
Well, that really
and we
is.
don't think about that.
Yeah, well, you're right. That really is my goal. Our goal with life groups is not just a Bible study, learning about the facts, but how do we actually live this out? How do we think about this? What's it doing in my heart? Share that, talk about it. That's what life groups are for. And I liked what you said, throwing my stuff. It's not throwing everything everywhere. We don't ask everybody to stand up in the middle of a Sunday service and share all their stuff with everybody. We make small groups so you build more intimacy and
care and trust.
Care and trust.
Yeah.
And then you can share a note. Like I have an accountability partner that I'll share everything. And he'll say, I love you anyways, right? And I say the same, and it's this beautiful thing. It's still hard to share the stuff, right? But it's like you said, putting it all out there, it's like, I'm making a mess. Well, if you're doing construction, which we both went through construction projects, what do you have to do first?
Yeah.
Tear it all down, make a mess, right?
Yeah.
Get dust in your lungs and cough for a couple months.
Even that sense of cutting and clearing away, even to the point of getting biological and saying, we have to get rid of that gangrene so that you can heal. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Well, lots to ponder, and I hope you do. I hope you're talking with someone, whether it's a close friend, a spouse, a family member, somebody. I hope you're a part of Life Group, and if you're not, let us know. We're always wanting to figure out how we can bring more people into Life Groups. But ponder these things. We're going to shift gears now and talk about what's coming. this Sunday is Palm Sunday.
Yay!
It's crazy. It just seems like it's still, a couple weeks away.
It also feels like it was just Christmas.
Yeah. I don't have that feeling quite, but I get what you're saying. Yeah.
I'm still there.
So, Palm Sunday this Sunday, which means that the next week, that's the kickoff of Passion Week. We call it the week of Jesus leading up to the cross. Good Friday, not tomorrow, but in a week from tomorrow, Good Friday, we're having a Good Friday service, 10 o'clock at Emmanuel Church. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that? Or?
Yeah, that's for a lot of our West Side churches actually coming together and actually kind of coming under one roof and just praising God together. And so even you'll see representation in the music, in the preaching, in the communion from every single church that's a part of that. So it's not about one church. It's not about one pastor, one leader, whatever. It is, we are the body of Christ, and we get to share this together. And it's actually his body and blood and resurrection that actually unites us and combines us together. So that's a really exciting day. So
it is.
Good Friday.
And we're both part of it.
Yeah.
Part of being up front, along with our friends. Like these other pastors are our friends. We really enjoy getting together with them. So that's Good Friday at 10 o'clock in the morning at Emmanuel Church. And then Easter Sunday, we'll be here in our sanctuary. Our building. Tell us a little bit about that.
So first things first, we're going to start at 9 a.m. with just a light continental breakfast in the fellowship room. And you're welcome to come and hang out and have a coffee and just connect with people around the table. It's a light breakfast, so come and just enjoy.
It's about the connecting.
It's about the connecting.
Right?
Yep. And so then at 10 o'clock we'll come back into this room and we will celebrate Easter, and we'll kind of point to the resurrection and why that Sunday is so fantastic. Even though right now today we can actually still celebrate it.
Oh yeah,
right?
We celebrate every day.
But yet, it makes it very exciting that day.
So make sure those things are on your calendar. We are super excited about the next coming weeks. And we're just excited about doing life together more and more, being more and more open with each other, vulnerable. So have a really blessed and enjoyable rest of your week. We're praying for you. God bless.